black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson. For those of you who are new to the show, the purpose of the Umoja Circle is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. This is part two of a two-part talk that I've been doing on a particular book that was actually written in 1980 by a brother called Dr. Yawanda Kunjufu. That's him right there. That's the younger version of him. The next video will give you a more current version of the brother. He's a scholar. He is a teacher. He does workshops. But his most profound book was the one that you see there. That image that you see in the book there, that's his sons. I'm sure they're grown men now, since this was back in the 80s when this book came out. And this book, there's a part 2 and a part 3 that came out later on, and it's from this book that I'm doing my discussion, and it has an interesting title, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, and we're going to talk more about that later. But he's the author. He's from Chicago, Illinois. He got his doctorate degree, and these are some of the books that he has. It's volume 2, and this is another book that he wrote. He wrote over 40 to 50 books. So this is a prolific writer and and this is something that I kind of focus on a little bit in the discussion, that I get some of my information. So understanding, and I'm going to go into this second part, understanding black male learning style, because we do have a unique learning style. We're males, but we have a unique learning style based on our cultural prompts. And now, even though he focused on black boys, he also focused on our young sisters. There are certain things that he likes to talk about, but that's another time. And he also had a degree in economics, so he has books on economics. Very, very well-rounded author, very, very powerful scholar, and I thought you would like to know him. You could find some of his old lectures on the interweb, on YouTube and what have you. But before I go on, I want to open this discussion with a little video clip that kind of want to start off. Just listen to this young brother, current time, who's talking about how men are not allowed to give the full access to their emotions or their feelings. Listen, and we'll come back in a few.
Men are not allowed to have full access to their feelings. Can I give y'all a great example of that? We in the house, me and my wife, she's pregnant, and my, at the time, 4-year-old daughter sleeping in her room. It's 3 a.m. and we hear whoop, 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 whoop. The alarm goes off in my house. So I pop up. I got the handy on me, you know. I got 30 in the mag. Boom. Hit that charger hand. Gang, I'm ready. I go downstairs, I'm checking all the rooms. My heart beating like crazy. I check the living room, we good. I check the kitchen, we good. I walk into the basement, man. My finger trembling a little bit, but I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I go to the basement, I peek around the last corner. The wind opened the door to the garage and messed up the sensor. Closed the joint, locked it. Whew. Sat down for a little bit, let my nerves chill, and I said, wait a minute, I just realized something. Fear is a human emotion. Fear is a natural human emotion. If I put you in a hot room, you're gonna sweat. If I put you in a cold room, you're gonna shiver. If I put you in a room that's anxiety producing, you wanna have anxiety. If I put you in some scary shit, you're gonna be scared. 2 of us were scared that night. Only one of us had permission to feel that. Wow. My wife laid in bed. She was in bed. I couldn't be afraid to the point of inaction. Because if all of us were murdered in that house, and Fox 5 came in, first thing people would have said is why he didn't protect his family. Why he allowed those things to happen to him. What happens to a human being who's not allowed to feel the full scope of their emotions? How does that work? How do you function? How do you grow up from 1 to 5 being the joy and apple of your mama's eye, and as soon as you become a teenager, the issues that she may have with other men, you represent that now. And she could grow to resent you just a little bit. Or maybe your father wasn't there. Or maybe he wasn't hugged enough as a child and told that he was handsome, and told that he was smart, and told that he was capable. But the world around him told him he wasn't shit, so he absorbed that. And that became who he was and how he felt about himself. That pours into you too. Nobody in this room is who they are by chance.
Welcome back. What do you think? I think a lot of men could say that. We are not allowed to fully express our feelings in this culture, okay? Especially black men, okay? This system is dominated by white males, always have been since day one, okay? And as any male, there's always a competitive nature, okay, of dominance. And just because there were certain laws that were passed in 1865, and 1870s, and voting rights and all that, the system still wants to maintain power, white male. And black men had always, young black boys, in one of the statistics we start there, have always been shown to be smart and brilliant. That's a threat. And this is what Dr. Kunjufu is talking about in the conspiracy to, countering the conspiracy to destroy black boys. First, you must talk about it. You got to understand what we're up against before we could come up with solutions. And he talks about it in many of his books. So, but I'm just going to gloss over some points for the show to introduce you to think about what I'm talking about. Let's go on to the next show. This is one of his famous quotes that I like to, I also, one thing I'm drawn to Dr. Kunjufu, because I think some of these things myself, you know, through the years. Only a man, and only a man, can teach a young boy how to be a man. If a young boy does not see a man or has not been around him by the time he reaches the 9 or 10 years old, there's going to be issues. He's going to find it, because by 9 years old, the older a boy gets, the stronger the pull of the streets. And if there's no, and if he doesn't have a clue, or nobody could tell him now, this is what a man does, and this is what's going on, he's going to find some weird interpretation of it, and you can see what's going on, being pregnant, getting a woman pregnant, young girl pregnant is not making you a man. Smoking cigarettes does not make you a man. But some of these things are pitfalls, and trying to get money no matter what, dropping out of school because, make you look like a sissy is not being a man. But if no male or a man tells them, mature man tells them what, they're going to find some false interpretation. And the system is geared to deal with them. That's what Dr. Kunjufu is letting you know. We have to have our way of dealing and countering the conspiracy, because it was a conspiracy established since 1619 to deal with black people, especially the threat of another male, especially black males. Let's go on. Okay, these are certain questions that we're going to try to go through in this segment. Okay, when did the conspiracy start? And he called this conspiracy in a way, he got a unique way of doing it, and he's using the educational system as an example. It's called the fourth grade syndrome, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but this is the point I wanted to bring up. There's been studies done by the University of Michigan and University of Illinois that show that black boys are one of the smartest students in the country. That doesn't fit the description that we have about, some of us even about ourselves, but black boys, okay? And here's a couple of case studies that's found in the books that he writes. There was a case study done which followed 3 young black boys between the 3rd grade and the 7th grade, okay? From kindergarten to 3rd grade, you have active young black boys. Everybody sees them going to nursery school or kindergarten class. You see black boys raising their hand, up front, involved. Up until the 3rd grade, they have, they taking tests, they're interacting with the teachers, but something happens after the 4th grade. This is the age of 9 years old, to the 7th grade. There's a decline in their activities. There's a decline. They sit in the back of the room. They're not interacting why this activeness in the primary school age, but by the middle and the high school age, a lot of black boys and brown boys are tuned out and turned off. Okay, and let's go back to this. There was a case study done which followed 3 young black boys between the 3rd grade and the 7th grade, then calculated their progress. Let's go on to see what happens. What contributed to this 4th grade syndrome? They suffer from that 4th grade syndrome. A change in the learning style. By the time that what they found, what black boy reached the 4th grade, that contributes to it again, from activity-based thing when you get in primary school to have to sit still. Black boys are active. Black boys are attention span. Anybody who raised black boys know that they have a short attention span. They'll go from one thing to another. Okay, that's in our cultural thing. That's just how black boys act. All boys are naturally hyperactive. Okay, that's the thing. The 4th grade, the teacher outlook, again, the teacher outlook changes. Again, you got this a white teacher, predominantly female, because majority of the primary school teachers that a boy, especially a black boy, come in contact with is female. 83% of primary school, talking about kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, those are all females. There's a cultural reason why, I talked about in the last show, what happened to a lot of the black teachers after Brown versus the Board of Education. A lot of them were men because this was a male-dominated society, so you had a lot of well-educated black men and black women up until the 1950s who had doctorate degree and master's degree and all kinds of degrees in order to get jobs, even as kindergarten teachers in this segregated apartheid country. Okay, but when Brown versus the Board of Education happened, and they started integrating schools, white teachers were less qualified. White teachers were put in place of the black teachers who know our children, know how to deal with them, and a lot of the male role models of principals, superintendents, school teachers, they were all given pink slip. There's a book called Segregation Pink Slip that you might want to look at to get more information on that. But by the time a boy reached the 4th grade, you have a suburban young white teacher who never dealt with black boys, who have a built-in biases, even if they have good intentions, is an unconscious bias trying to get that young, highly motivated, highly curious black child that has high IQ, a lot of them, okay? But they're told to sit down, get back to your seats, and young black, bored young children are going to test you. They have a sense of their identity at that time. By the time they reach the 4th grade, by the time they're 9, they know their blackness. They see the difference in how they're treated. And they don't have a lot of guidance or understanding, and then they want to prove themselves because in those streets, they have to prove themselves constantly, okay? That's some of the dangers of being forced in some of these inner cities, okay, where you're a man and you can have this person try to tell you what to do, blah, 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 who don't know you. So you're going to have an attitude. You're going to test her. You're going to question her. She looks past you. Or she doesn't see you as having any intelligence or exasperated, okay? I want to send you to detention constantly. That's what happens starting the 4th grade. You go from these activity-driven type of curriculum from the nursery, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, then you start going to more left brain, sit still, structured type of systems that a highly motivated black boy in the 3rd and 2nd and 1st grade and a distracted black boy who was curious about things and want to move around, instead of understanding and shaping your curriculum or your lesson plan to fit that black child, understanding their cultural tics. No, you want them to be structured in a way that they don't handle it well. And then they get in trouble because they don't follow your rules. Okay? Let's go on to let's continue with this discussion. Okay? Dr. Yawanda Kunjufu was one of the first educators to look at how black males are educated in the United States educational system. That's why he wrote these books. Let's go on with that. Let's see. Okay, he found that in addition to the overt racism, like I talked about, this system was a racist system. So even though 1954 came around and said, well, on a piece of paper, you could go to whatever school you want to, separate but equal, there was still a racist society in the 1950s, 1960s, and black children were still looked at as other. Okay? But he didn't only talk about the dominant white system. He talked about black folks themselves, parents. You know, how many people during these Generation Xers that grew up, that came after us, baby boomers, what we call the latchkey kids? How many kids were, you know, because of the struggles of just putting food on the table, both parents had to work. So you have kids coming in with the key around their neck, open the door and plop themselves down in front of a TV, usually in black communities. Okay, other communities where you have, like Asian community, where you have a support system. Okay, black people had a support system because they had no choice during enslavement and segregation, early parts of segregation, in the 1870s and early 1900s. We had that. You know, you had that structure. Okay, you had the role models. You had your neighbors that looked after the kids. There was a sense of community. Okay, but if you're struggling in today's society, working long hours, and kids during the 90s and the 80s when the latchkey kids were about, and even kids today who are heads are in their computer and their phones, their iPhones, that's who's teaching them, okay? But they're not getting the information that is necessary. They're getting some other forms of information, but the knowledge that they need to pass certain tests and get the things that qualifies them for higher education. They're not getting that, okay? You know, he's in the middle. He just said that he sees black males as caught in self-perpetuating cycles of failure. You know, in which, like I said, the absence of stable, successful adult role models. If you put that person in front of TV, what kind of black role models are you seeing? Okay, I'm seeing drug dealers all the time. Okay, I'm seeing rap stars who imitate drug dealers or talk about the money that they have or the jewelry that they have. But it's also perpetuated by the schools or the basketball players. Those are the only kind of role models these young boys have. Okay, if you're smart in school, you're called, you know, you're acting white. I've heard that said about young black smart kids who said that if they're good in English or good in math, well, you're acting white. Well, how did we get that kind of mentality? Let's go on to the next one. All right, the term miseducation, which we suffer from, was coined by Carter G. Woodson back in 1915 about the systematically depriving African Americans of their knowledge of self. Okay, first of all, when you hit that fourth grade syndrome, you have a self-awareness, okay? Okay, I know I'm black, but I don't see no images of me. When I'm taught in school, I only see Christopher Columbus or Thomas Jefferson or all these other great Americans, but they all look like the other. They all look like the people around me. Where am I? The only images I have is on television is, again, drug dealers or buffoonery or basketball players, basically. Let's go on. Since America's inception, again, black people have fought for the fundamental right affordable to all its citizens, including the right to be educated. Of all that, that's what I want you to focus on and understand. Let's go on. These are the fourth grade syndrome. I think I talked about them earlier, but I think it's important that we make sure we understand this, what happens at that 9-year-old boy's perception, okay? Again, like I said earlier, there's a change in the learning style. There's a change in the teacher's perception of that black child, usually white, usually female, at the elementary school. You know, you might start seeing some black male teachers after the fourth grade, but by then you're either in trouble already, but or doing detention, but you don't see enough of them. Predominantly, teaching profession is predominantly by female and predominantly white female. But D is a very important thing I want to stop at, okay? At his age, increases, the peer pressure also increases, okay? From around 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, that boy is influenced by his peers, the people he calls his friends, the streets. Especially if you are in the inner city and you got to walk a number of blocks to get to a school, you have to deal with the pressures of that streets and the peer pressure. You get advice from your dumb friends if you're male about young ladies and all these things. When you talk about who's your girlfriend, at the lunch breaks, or who you like, or he's dumb, or try to get into fights. Okay. Another thing that's many people don't realize that's when we start trying to understand this thing called manhood. Around after the fourth grade, that's important. I'm going. Who's dominant? Most males are always doing that. They're always going to try to see who's in the pecking order, who's the most dominant person around. That's all males, but black boys are no different. But they get have more problems in school by the biases of the people, the adults around them for doing that. For example, there's a game that's pretty prevalent in a lot of black communities or throughout the diaspora. You might know that the dozens, okay, where you try to talk your opponent. People don't realize, if you understood the cultural nuances, that I would have told a young black boy that that is something that came out of Africa. In fact, the ethnic group called the Igbo people and some people from Ghana, where that is also done, where you have two people, it could be male and female, something like Wild and Out. I think that Nick Cannon got a show where you see a version of that. But the dozens, it has very different names throughout the country, but many people know it as a dozen, where you try to say things but that shows a verbal acuity. There's a lot of things that happen, and they do that in school a lot, okay? Try to outrank or outshine the other person. But if you have a teacher that doesn't own those things, and sometimes it can lead to a fight because your mama jokes can get a little out of hand, But that's part of the culture that came up. A lot of people don't know it. They think it's something that is trivial or shouldn't be done, but it is something that is embedded in black culture. You find it all over the diaspora, even all throughout Africa to this very day. In fact, that type of joking banter between two people goes back to the Mali Empire. Did you know that? See, but a white suburban teacher and some black folks will never know to talk to a group of young black boys about something they think is something that they saw their big brother do, but it's something that's endemic in us. That will make it more interesting, don't you think? Let's go on. Okay. This is another interesting point. I got a few minutes, and I might end here. A University of Michigan study showed that before 1950, like I said, the major influence on children was home, school, church, then peer group, and then TV. This was before 1950. At the writing of this book, and I'm sure it's about the same even in 21st century, after 1980s, it went from, home was still number one, but guess what jumped to number two instead of school? The peer group, TV, then school dropped to 4, and then church, okay? In 1950, it was home, school, church was 3, peer groups was 4, your friends, your community, played outside, and then TV. After 1980, it was home, again, peer group, but home latchkey kids by yourself in front of that TV, and your peer group had more influence on our black children. This is what Dr. Kumjufu is saying. We have to understand the conspiracy to destroy black boys and girls, but that's another show. Let's go on. Now that earlier, yes, the last show, I started with a video clip which had this point, and I think I want to end with that. There was a quote by Brother Michael Jordan, who said, "There's a million people try to get my job as a basketball player." Now you have, because that's the image we constantly see. If you do things over and over and over again, you get to do it well. That's why we got good basketball players. But how come we don't do things over and over and over again to get good math teachers or good scientists? We have the brilliance. But he said that you got 1 million people, young boys, who are vying to get playing basketball. Only 400,000 make it to high school ball in this country. And of that 400,000, 4,000 make it to college to play football or basketball. And of that, only about 50 to 60 or 40 to 60 make it to the NBA. And out of that, 7 are the ones that start. So you got 1 million people vying for 7 jobs that only last 4 years on average. Is that what we want for our boys? So if you want to know more about this book, these are the books that you should get, and want to know more about this topic. I hope, and I'll end here, that I try to give you a little insight, just whet your appetite, that you just can't let our boys not understand what manhood is. Rites of passage, if you have any kind of organization where there's men that could teach these young boys how to be boys, it'll be great for them. It starts not at the manhood, it starts at the boy. Okay? Until then, peace, Hotep, bye-bye.